Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ancient Assyrian Props and Costumes. I'm Donald Barkho, and today we'll be discussing Ancient Assyrian Sword and Dagger hilts. In my last video, I mentioned that my cousin, when he was holding the sword from the chariot, he held it in this position. Notice how his thumb is choking the guard and his fingers are on the first three ribs of the grip, and you see a glimpse of that last rib and then the pommel. So in this case, he is holding it exactly like Ashur Banipal is in his lion hunt reliefs, and there's me with my shield and extra large sickle sword, ancient Assyrian sickle sword. So you can see I've got my dirk slash dagger in my broad belt. Here is my sickle sword. Even though I've got a shield, you can see the distinct advantage that a person in a chariot has, not just with the sword, but also even more with a spear, uh, because of the height advantage. Not only is he taller than me, but he is also elevated approximately 45 centimeters off the ground because of the platform in regards to the chariot. So this was the image that I was referring to in my last video concerning my cousin and his hand placement on this particular sword, which came instinctively to him. So now what I'd like to do is go into some of the images I've collected, not only of ancient Near Eastern swords from the late Bronze Age and also from the early Iron Age, but focusing in on ancient Assyrian imagery, so the ancient Assyrian bas reliefs, their art, and see if there is something we can learn from the bas reliefs that they carved in regards to sword hilts and daggers and hand placements on the hilts, especially in battle 3. Okay, so I've enlarged my cursor, the arrow, as you can see, and I'm going to go into Assyrian art sword handles. This is a file of images that I've had on my old hard drive, on my old laptop, and we'll just go through some of the photos to give you an idea of what I'm looking at in order for me to do my research. Now, I thought this, although is not an original Assyrian piece of art, but when you look at it, especially the bottom half, you see the table, and underneath the table you can see items of Assyrian artifacts. Here is a rendition of a double lion-headed Assyrian sword with the double lions on the scabbard of the sword as well. A quiver with arrows in it. Here is a angular bow. There is a shield. I think that's armor. And there is a helmet, a frilled helmet of a light infantryman. I think that's an axe. And there seems to be another pointy thing here, possibly a dagger, but maybe that one is too, the handle of a dagger. Okay, we see some headbands here, used in this case as decoration on the table, the double rosettes, the lion-legged tables. Anyway, so here I thought there was a nice set of images in regards to ancient Assyrian artifacts, so to speak. But let's have a look at the next picture. Okay, this is a bas relief from Khorsabad. Dur Sharukin in ancient Assyrian times was the city of Sargon in ancient Iraq. Here we can see a dagger tucked into the broad belt. See if we can zoom it in a bit. This is a hero figure. Yeah, that's a bit blurry. Maybe we can get a close up in the next photo. Here we go. Okay, so here is the broad belt. This is the fringed baldric going across the chest. This is the left arm, so this is the left side. And here you can see in this period, in the later stages of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, you see this particular style of sword or dagger hilt, and notice then how you've got this area carved out in shape. It's similar. Although this is not ancient Assyrian, it is an image that I think represents how swords would have been tucked in. You notice the ribs on the handle, the flared pommel, which gives you nice grip in there and locks the fingers in. You can see the sheath starts approximately here. So from here to this section here is the actual handle. So actually from here to here. So this section would be the guard, the grip, and then the so-called pommel. Okay, so here is a classic image of the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal on his lion hunt. He's got his bow over his arm. He's clearly thrusting with his hand. Notice the damage that's been done here and the damage that's been done here, and this was intentional as well. This damage was to symbolize the loss of potency in the Assyrian kingdom at the time when it was sacked by the Babylonians and the Medes. But here we can see the guard and the thumb hand placement. It seems like he's all the way back here towards the back half of the handle. Remember how you could place it forward, choking the guard, and then you can also place it back. Okay, and you can see in this case, if from the pommel to the end of the guard, if we have a look at that, that's approximately 2 hands in width. When you count 2 hands, you've got another handle here, and then another 2, so that would be 6. That would be about a cubit. It's a cubit and a little bit less than 1 hand long in length from the pommel end to the tip. Okay, so this is at a later stage of the Assyrian Empire. I believe these are from Sennacherib's palace in Nineveh. The last one, the Ashurbanipal reliefs, I think, from the North Palace in Nineveh. But here, what I want to focus on is this particular soldier. So you can see he's an archer, and that strap, I want you to keep an eye on the strap. I'll get to it later. He's wearing a headband, a tunic, broad belt. That's his quiver, his bow. These armored straps, sword straps, will come into play later. But what I want you to notice is the hand. So you've got the half round or mushroom pommel. Then there's the little area for the pinky. You've got the ribs, and then the swell in the middle, the ribs again, and then you've got the actual guard. But what I want to draw your attention to is this fluting, because we'll see it again in some archaeological evidence as well. So keep that in mind. And that's supposedly this person here is wearing a turban with a headband with ear flaps kept in place, and he's Judean or from the Palestinian region. Notice his socks. He's wearing boots, typical Assyrian gear. So the boots, the socks, and these go around the knee to prevent the socks or leggings from coming down. You've got a relatively short tunic here, broad belt, and he also has the short sword as well tucked into his narrow belt, wielding a spear. There are his bracelets, which also could be a form of metal a medal honor. And here too, he's got his bracelets, and this guy's an archer. And this is a duck-headed bow end. So this is from the Palace of Sargon. In this bas relief, again Khurshabad. What I want to draw your attention to is the hilt of the handle, the half pommel or the half round pommel, mushroom top pommel, then the two ribs, the ball, then the two ribs. The ball at this stage of the Assyrian Empire has become a lot more round, whereas in the earlier period of the Neo-Assyrians, during the reign of Shalmaneser and the third and Ashurnasirpal the second, we see a slight variation on this from an earlier period. However, the features that you see here are basically the same. The ribs, the swell in the middle, the mushroom end pommel, and the double lion's heads as the guard of the sword. And this sword strap, notice again, these little circles. I've been wondering, what are they? What type of decoration is on these sword straps? We've noticed red paint on the sword straps in other ancient Assyrian bas reliefs from the Neo-Assyrian period. And this gentleman here with his duck-billed bow ends of an angular bow, arrows in hand, seems to be wearing some form of armor, broad belt, a tunic with square scales possibly stitched on to the armor. And here he's wearing a tunic with a half shawl wrapped around. Notice the difference in the fringe of the shawl and the fringe of the tunic. Two separate pieces. Headband, typical Assyrian hairstyle. They look barefoot. This one's got sandals. Possibly. This one anyway. He's caught a hare. And what's that? Deer, gazelle, something like that. Okay. So let's see if we can zoom in to this image of Ashurbanipal hunting lions. Here is his sword in its scabbard. And there is the shape of the handle. Notice this one has got one, two. It's a bit messy here. Possibly three ribs. Mushroom pommeled handle. There's no swell. That circle has gone from the handle of Ashurbanipal's sword. Notice the split in this long skirt. Okay, so these reliefs are from Ashurnasirpal's times, found in his palace at Kalhu, ancient Assyrian capital. Now let's zoom in and see. Okay, so here we see a very similar type of handle. That's the guard, that's the rib, the swell, the rib, and then the mushroom pommel at the end. Now here we can see the mushroom pommel, the space, and then one rib, and then it would have been the swell, one rib again, and then the guard. Here. So mushroom pommel, place for the pinky, the rib, the swell, the rib, and then the guard of the sword. Notice those, he's holding a mace. Actually, I want to bring your attention to this mace. The style of the head of the mace is what I want you to focus on, because that we'll see later. It's got a loop at the end of the mace, and all this guy's job is to be a shield bearer and to pass arrows to the king, who's also got a spare arrow in his hand at the same time. Scale armor, you can see it. So that's actually attached to the helmet. He doesn't seem to be wearing scale armor on the bottom half. It looks like a tunic with broad belt. And tunic that goes past the knees with a fringe, and they're sandaled. Notice this guy's not sandaled. Let's see if we can see some more. Yeah, okay. So that's what's going on in this relief. Same from the Palace of Ashurnasirpal. Here we can see this person has drawn his sword. There's no handle. Here we can see the handle in the actual scabbard. Let's zoom in and get a closer look of what's going on. Okay, so here you got the two lions grappling or hugging each other, looking back away from each other. Here you got the pattern of the scabbard, the straps to hold the scabbard into place. Here you get the two lions. Now, initially I thought that these two lions were part of the guard of the actual sword, but they are not. So here clearly we see in this case, this person's got flutes, and then from there would start the actual handle of the sword, which is not here because you can see his hand is drawn. That's a club lock. And you can sort of make out something that would be a lion, double lion's head. In this case, it's a bit unclear. Now, what I want to draw your attention to here is this image. There's two soldiers here who are one is shooting a bow, and that's the scabbard of the sword, and here is the sword that he's holding. Now let's see. Club lock. See the thumb on the other side. So the thumb's on the other side, the forefingers on this side, the pommel end, and he's choking the grip. You can see it's a sharp point, but notice the relatively short size. And this is what's strange or unusual about Assyrian swords. What seems to happen is when they pull them out of the sheaths, the size of the sword when it's in the hand compared to the sheath that's being artistically represented are two different sizes. Here is the next image. This is the image of that hand that I was showing you before that was holding the sword. Notice the scabbard and then the sword handle. So this is the sword handle. His sword handle is not shown because he's drawn his sword. Who is that guy? That guy is the guy behind the main archer. You can see he's a shield bearer. There you go, C-shaped handle. He's holding the shield in a C-shaped handle. And then let's look. So if you assume that scabbard is the same size as this one, imagine the blade length here would go approximately to there. And again, when we zoom in, so you got the double lion's heads, the ribs, the swell in the middle, which is slightly elongated towards the end, a style that is specific to the reliefs of Shalmaneser and Ashurnasirpal, and then the rib, and then the mushroom pommel at the end. Here again, Ashurnasirpal's relief. Here is a handle of a shield. You can see the way he's holding that C-shaped handle. Here again is a warrior climbing up the ladder. He's doing acrobats here. Seriously. Like, how hard would it be to actually scale a ladder at the same time with a shield and spear in your hand and fight at the same time? Ridiculously hard. So this guy is preparing himself to climb up. Straight after him, look, he's got one foot on the rung of the ladder already. This one's got supposedly two. Acrobats. I'm telling you, acrobats here. This is an enemy who's fallen down. Notice his tunic's about gone over his head. But here, this is an image of Assyrian sword and shield in action. This guy who's under the ladder, you can see one of his mates has tunneled through or trying to undermine the fortifications, and he is protecting his fellow man. So he's got his shield from debris being thrown or rocks being thrown or arrows being loosed. Again, you can see the relatively short sword that's being depicted in this case. Guard, and then the end is their club lock rip, they're choking. C-shaped handle, and this is the shield. Helmet, conical style helmet. Okay, so let's go to the next image. This is from Ashurbanipal's times. I believe this is an image of an Egyptian city being sacked by the Assyrians when they were in Egypt. Could be Thebes or possibly Memphis. But let's take a closer look here. You can possibly see someone holding a sword. We can see another person possibly holding a sword here. Let's see if we can identify acrobats. Here, acrobats. Seriously, on rungs of ladder. If this ladder was flat and I got up on it and tried to train just walking across with sword and shield in hand, it would be crazy hard. Now imagine if you had to scale it while it was on an angle. I think you're just asking for trouble. Okay, so here I want to make a distinction between shields. You can see a variety of shields being used. Notice these tall tower shields. You've got circular flat shields used by the light infantrymen, spear in hand. And then you've got the big round cone-shaped shields used by the heavy infantryman, which is indicated by his conical shaped helmet, scale armor, skirt, and then stockings and boots. So this is a heavy Assyrian infantryman. You got a light archer here, and you got light infantryman as well. And you got an Assyrian heavy infantryman here with a big tower shield leaned up against the wall, which is covering him so that he can undermine, get through. Here you have a light infantryman holding his spear and shield in one hand. See that C grip? He's got his sword. He's using it to pick out the fortifications, the brickworks, and get through the fortifications of the enemy city. This is what I want to draw your attention to. Notice these. I'm calling them the curved shields. And the reason why I call them curved shields is because Assyrians also used these big tower shields instead, especially in siege warfare. So my point is, if I call this one a tower shield, then what am I supposed to call this one? A skyscraper shield? Clearly this is the tower shield and this one's just a curved shield. Wielded in one hand by, in this case, it looks to be a light infantryman. Here again you could see that type of shield. Here is a round one. That's a light infantryman. So you can see the distinctions. You got quite a variety of shields being used all in the same scene. Here is the other gentleman. Sometimes I think they've got sticks in their hands, but in this case I think that the angulation of this particular item that he's holding in his hand is reminiscent of the shape of the daggers, as we can see him here. So he's using a dagger to pick out, or a short sword to pick out. This is probably a short sword he's using to threaten the captives to move on. Here again, that's your light infantryman. He's got an axe in his hand. Notice he's using a double-handed, double-bladed axe to damage the fortifications as well. And here, he's got a sword in his hand. So he's just finished dismembering. And this guy has beat him to it. He's got two already. You think you're good, mate? Look how many I've got. Crazy, mate, crazy. And here you can get an idea of the size. Notice the shield, the body armor, the boots. He's trying to light them on fire. Acrobats here. Look at them. There's that curved shield of mine, the blue one that you see here, in this case being used by light infantry. And then look at this one. This one looks more stick-like. And then you get to the Assyrian heavy infantry, and look at that. That's the same tower shield that I've got, that he's holding, using, and trying to scale a ladder. Imagine that, with a spear in his hand. Here are archers. So I think what's happening is the archers are covering with fire, with arrow power, the pathway for the infantry to be able to scale up the walls. So they're putting pressure. Sometimes you see, here we go, we've got archers up on the ladders as well. So they're giving fire cover power for whoever's up at the top trying to fight against them. Here you got a heavy infantryman. Look at his spear. Speared one down already. But acrobatics, like seriously, the level of difficulty to perform these acts is astonishing. In real life, like you could attempt it, but being successful at attempting such a maneuver is absolute crazy, especially when you're being rained down on by stones, by arrows, by hot oil, hot water, anything like that. Yeah. Okay, so this is a close up of that same scene. Maybe we can get a better idea. Here you go. These are the tower shields. These are tower shields, not these ones. These are not tower shields. These are tower shields. If I call these tower shields, I have to call these ones skyscraper shields. What's left? So here you can see that the guy in the back behind the archers, you can see him always when they defend. They either defend with a spear or they defend with their sword out. So this guy is already armed, and he's holding the shield, C-shaped grip, while with sword in hand. Now, when we look at the hand, here you go. See how there's the mushroom pommel. His hand, his last pinky, it's choking the entire from the guard to the grip. It's forward. It's not locked in the back in this particular case. You can see the length of that blade. So if we assume that the guard ends here, that there is all blade. Oh yeah, we've got some slingers as well. Here you can see the balls of the slings. These are heavy infantry, conical shape, armor. He's got a quiver on his back. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. That's the other side. Yeah, that's better detail from the other side. So here's look crazy acrobats. Crazy acrobats. What are they? Spears. Oh, and there's more ladders to climb, mate. Once you finish that, there you go. There's the frilled helmet, flat shield of the light infantryman, his pectoral, broad belt, narrow belt, tunic. Oh, by the way, in order for you to pull off maneuvers like this, your tunic has to be large enough for you to have a lot of free space to move at the bottom. So I've been figuring out a few stuff in regards to that as well. Here you can see his spear and his shield, heavy infantryman. Notice these guys with the conical helmets are definitely in Assyrian gear, proper Assyrians, and these could be auxiliaries, light infantry auxiliaries. These are heavy infantry auxiliaries. But notice how they're all working in a team. The light infantry and the light archers are also working in unison with the heavy infantry as well. You see light infantrymen working in unison with auxiliary archers. You also see them working in tandem with heavy infantry at times. So this is your tower shield. Notice he's protecting, giving extra firepower. So that's what I think these guys are doing, covering the attempts by the enemy trying to dispatch them off. So they're giving firepower to them. Anyway, here, notice the style of the bow. This is not an angular bow. This is an Egyptian bow of the enemy that's fallen. This type of bow, Egyptians had angular bows by this time, but they also had the self bow. The self bow, when you string it up, looks like this. It doesn't look like the angular bow, which has a tendency, see, with the duck's heads. This is not that bow. This is an Egyptian self bow. Okay, so here's another image of Ashurnasirpal's palace reliefs. Beautiful chariot, lion hunting, obviously. Lions copted, horse. Now here's the shield at the back. There's the sword, and there's the sword handle. Let's see if we can zoom in more. Double daggers. So this guy is at the very least a prince, possibly the king himself. Uh, Indicated by the headband, the special headband he's wearing with the ties on the end. So either he's the crown prince. So in this case, because it's from Ashurnasirpal's palace reliefs, it's either Shalmaneser that's being depicted here, or it could be Ashurnasirpal without his actual crown. Instead, he's wearing just a headband that goes around the crown instead. So here you can see the daggers in the handle shape that's very similar to my daggers, which are of that simple design, just a little bit of a flare on the end, and then you've got the grip section, and then straight into the guard. Here on the other hand, you could see the handle of the sword, the mushroom pommel, and then you got the ribs, then the swell, and then the ribs, and then what would then become the lion, double lions headed guard. Here you've got lions hugging each other, looking away for your scabbard. Okay, so this is from Ashurnasirpal's North Palace. Ashurbanipal's North Palace in Nineveh. The other ones were from Kalhu. I want to draw your attention here. We can see the front and we can see the back. Irregardless of the mythological figure that it is concerning the feet and the head, this is a lion demon, I believe, of some sort. Here he's got his dagger in an ice pick grip. That dagger is being drawn. Notice the size of the dagger to the actual scabbard that's actually being slung around. So he's got a sword strap or a dagger strap to the scabbard that's being tucked into the narrow belt, and you've got the broad belt behind that. But the grip that he's using is an ice pick grip, and in this case we can't really zoom in, but I've got better images we can zoom in. But notice this peculiar feature in Assyrian bas-relief art. Here you see the front depicted. Here is your chest. So this would be your right arm. This is your left. He's holding a mace in his left hand with a dagger in his right. So that means that this scabbard is on the left side of his body. Okay? Now let's see what we have here. That's his back. That's his right arm. Here we go. That's the dagger. And then in his left arm, he's holding his mace. So that's his back. You can see the shoulder blades, and then the spine area and the ribs. So this is on his left. So if it's on his left, then his strap should come over his right shoulder, which is correct, and here too. Okay. Now because he's not wearing any clothes on the upper section, you can see the body is totally naked up at the top. He's wearing his broad belt, narrow belt, and then just the wraparound shawl that you see on the bottom halves. So this piece is separate, okay? Separate item of clothing that is worn on top of what would usually be a tunic. So every time you see this skirt, this type of skirt, it's not a skirt. It's a kilt or shawl, wraparound shawl that could be worn by itself, or could be worn over a tunic that is being worn underneath. So keep that in mind. It's a separate piece of item. So here we can definitely see the shoulder blades. That's the left side. But what's astonishing is the size of the dagger. These particular daggers give me a Elamite kind of vibe to them in their design. Then we have this relief of Ashurbanipal. Here we go. There it is. Celebrating the victory over the Elamite king. And I want to draw your attention here. So on this particular table, he's got his quiver, his bow, and his sword as well. So when we zoom in, we can see that's the guard, and then this is the ribbed handle with the pommel on the end. You can see the scabbard as well, nicely sitting on the table. From here, I'm gonna go into something. These images I've had for a while, but they're pretty rare. Not many people get to see these particular images. These particular drawings are drawings of reliefs. Here in this case, what does that look like? By Layard, I think. Yeah. So these are actual line drawings of the Assyrian bas-reliefs. Very good. These are from the time of Tiglath-Pileser. Notice you don't seem to have the point on all the helmets. So these are half round helmets that they're wearing. You got two archers. For some reason, they're both clad in long tunics. And if you were to have a look, the third man, who's the tower shield bearer, that's a tower shield with the C-shaped handle, is armed with a dagger. Let's have a look at the placement of his hand. Notice how, look at that. Notice the placement of the thumb and how far forward he's holding it from the actual hilt. This is a relatively simple design compared to the one that's on this person. So straight away, this person is more important, even though he's beardless, than this person here, whose job is to hold the tower shield in place while the two archers loose their arrows. Very unusual way to put your thumb across like that. Looks like it's on the left side of the bow. Still does look like it's on the left side of the bow. He's using a two finger draw. Sometimes we see a variation on that. But you see the pommel, then the rib, then the swell, then the rib, and then the guard before the actual blade starts. So if we assume this gentleman here has the same type of scabbard, again, you can see, I mean, it's cut off here. Even if you were to take it to its logical conclusion, okay, the blade would be only so long, so about up to there. So your blade length is about there, but your scabbard is way longer. For some reason, I don't know why. So this is from Tiglath-Pileser's reliefs. Okay, let's see the other three at the back. Again, in this case, they're not wearing conical shaped helmets. It's just a round, half round helmet. Yeah. So that sort of mushroom style guard, pommel, then the rib, the swell, the rib, and then you're not left with much of a guard. But again, here, notice where the hilt ends, and notice where the end of his wrist is. Very far forward with the thumb across. So it could be even going over, not only over the guard, but over the bottom half of the blade, where the blade starts. Very forward grip. So here in this case, we're seeing it in two instances. Okay, so here, again, from Layard's drawing of Assyrian bas-reliefs from, I'm presuming Kalhu, but yeah, these are from King Tiglath-Pileser's times. So here is the handle. Notice the swell in the middle, the rib, and then the mushroom top. So this would be the guard. That much there is the blade. Chariot. Look, the shield on the back, 8-spoked. Yeah, this is definitely from Tiglath's times. You can tell by the style of the chariot as well, even the armor that's on the horses, and the style of dress. So there are conical style helmets. This guy is wearing a half circle helmet. There's another figure. You can see the scabbard. Looks like he's shooting a bow. Okay, so Here is an image again by Laud of Tiglath-Pileser, three-man chariot. This is interesting. Clearly, that's the king. We can tell by the crown, compared to the conical style helmets with the E-flaps. You can see the bows being drawn. And here, notice this is the third man. So you've got the driver of the chariot, three reins. So this is possibly a three-horse chariot, even though two horses are depicted because of the reins. But here in his hand, look at him. He's around, so he's almost hugging the king to stop him from falling back, possibly. But he's got a sword in his hand, very short, pointy sword. Again, that hand is rather forward compared to the pommel. Seems to be a grip that is purposefully being depicted. Let's see here. Okay, so here again, Tiglath's reliefs, line drawings by Laud, huge tower shields, and here you can see the C-shaped handle that the shield bearer is holding. In his other arm, his right arm, you see a dagger or a short sword being wielded. Notice the placement of the hand. So if this is the pommel, you got the first. After the pommel comes the dip and the first rib, and then you get the swell in the hand, and then you usually have another rib and then the guard. So his hand is pretty much from the grip section, not even touching anywhere near the pommel, with a slightly different shape than usual. So if you were to imagine the end of the guard would be approximately here. His hands are going over onto the actual blade. Yeah, I've tried this type of grip. I've found it to be relatively weak. What I mean is, if someone was to strike the actual blade, it would be very easy for the sword to actually fling out of the hand. Sorry, this one is even harder. This one's okay. So if you imagine this one straight on top, I just think you're asking for trouble because there's no guard. It's so easy. I'm going straight for your hand. If we're fighting in this era, I'm going straight for your hand. Straight for your hand. If you're doing that with your thumb, no questions asked. Here again, C-shaped handle. This is by the shield bearer. Conical shaped helmets. Let's see. Yeah, both here. Archer's got his quiver on his back. Notice it's not by his side. It's on his back. So here. This particular grip is rather weak. What it reminds me of is putting your hand, instead of having your thumb on this side, which would give you a club grip, you've got it on the other side of the blade, and this becomes very easy when you knock it down to get the actual hilt of the sword out of your hands. He's wearing scale armor. Look at that conical helmet, scale armor, broad belt. But what's with these long tunics? Yeah, I'd much prefer to be like this. So much more maneuverable. I guess this is your sign of status. Because obviously the person who's doing the shooting, oh yeah, he's got scale armor too, is the more important one. In this case, he's bearded. Notice this guy's more important than this guy, but this guy is not bearded. So when historians see this, they tend to believe that these guys are eunuchs. They could also be younger noblemen as well. So if it's his son, if this is the nobleman and that's his son, and these are their two shield bearers, probably their first cousins or their other members of the same family, they would have been tight. Notice the pairs. Even when we go back, yeah, pairs, and then you got a shield bearer. So tower shield and shield bearer. Hang on a minute. I think I've gone too far. That's a different image. Yeah. Okay, let's go to this one anyway. Same thing. Here's your battering ram, up the ramp, tower shield. He's holding his sword, so is he, but he's got a round shield. So they're covering that left flank. This guy's covering the left flank, and this guy's covering the front with his tower shield. Here we go. That's better. Seeing him in short tunics, I think, is better. Notice, this is not a sleeve tunic. There's no sleeves on this. This is just a regular tunic. The only difference is, instead of drawing all that excess material here of a regular bag tunic, they've smoothed them out. Conical, 3 conical helmets. So that would tell me that these guys are Assyrians. Here we go. A bit of fringe there, barefoot. Okay, notice the club lock grip, club lock grip, club lock grip, short, spiky. I think their purpose is more for thrusting than slashing, but we'll see some other images. Now the last one, okay, so this one's not as clear when I zoom in, but I think this is from Sennacherib's palaces in Nineveh. Okay, so here we have some interesting place. So obviously they're in a mountainous terrain that's indicated by all that cross hatching. You've got trees and plants. Assyrians, one's holding the plant, the other one's chopping it down with a double bladed axe. But you could tell this is not a war weapon. This is purposefully built in order to cut through timber. Because here again, same thing. One's holding the tree down while the other one chops. Notice this pairs. They always like working in pairs, these Assyrians. Pairs, 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 pairs. They're duos. Now, look at this. Auxiliary archer, Assyrian heavy infantryman. He looks like he's already... There's the arrow. He's already hit him. He's wounded. And then watch what the Assyrian does. He goes up to him, puts his leg on his leg. He's already wounded and finishes him off with his spear. Okay, so above... Oh, so he was also wielding a spear. Obviously, after he's wounded, he's dropped his spear. Here again, you could see an enemy with spear and shield dueling with a light Assyrian infantryman. You could tell that by his frilled helmet. He's dueling. There you go. There's a C-shaped handle in the center. He's dueling against the enemy. Overhand grip. He's got an overhand grip. This we see under. That's an overhand grip as well. So when they're actually going for the kill, they seem to be doing it in an overhand grip. Here is another enemy. He's probably being shot. You can't see the rest of the slab, but I'm guessing if you were to see it, he's being shot by an arrow. And over here, we see 2 light Assyrian infantrymen, one with a shield on his back. There we go. Both of them are using their daggers or spears to collect some food. So they've hunted it down. Now they're skinning it. They're going to butcher it so that they can have a barbecue while they're at war too. Okay, so this is an actual relief from Tiglath's times. Notice the scale armor, long tunic, shield bearer. Look at the big tower shields. These are big tower shields. These are tower shields, not that blue one. Here you can see the person who's holding the tower shield up, same. There we go, club lock position. You can't see the hand of this fellow, but I'm assuming it would be the same type of thing. Okay, his conical style helmets, square armor here. This is in besides the acrobatics again. Here we go, acrobats. Spears, light infantrymen, frilled. That should be a frilled type of helmet. Round, circular flat shields, spears. Notice how far they're holding them back. Overhand position, overhand position, overhand position, overhand position with the shield. But here you can see enemy slain. This one's already been dispatched. This one's already wounded. This one's probably fallen from the fortifications of the city. Here you got an Assyrian indicated by his conical helmet, finishing him off, holding his hair and using it. Let's see. Look how he's holding it. to finish the enemy off. So it seems like after they've been wounded, or after they're hurt and they're on the floor, they're finishing them off with the daggers. But initially, they're either using spear and shield to dispatch them or wound them, or they're using bow and arrow. So they're trying to keep their distance from the enemy as much as possible, wounding them and then coming and finishing them off. Here you've got some. It wouldn't be Assyrian if you didn't have some figures of enemies being impaled. Here we go. Oh, that's an Assyrian already in there. So he's already made it through into the fortifications, indicated by his conical helmet with the ear flaps, and he's chopping something down. He's cutting someone down. Okay. And we're still going. Here we go. Okay, so Ashurnasirpal on his bull hunting expedition. No, what did I do that for? Edit, undo. How do I undo? Anyway, go to the next image. Alright, so this is a Babylonian king. We can have a look at his costume. He's got 2 arrows in his hand. He's wearing shoes, slippers, shoes. Look at the beautiful embroidery on his tunic. Then he's got a hunting shawl on, broad belt, 2 straps. You see the fine decoration. And then this one looks to be short sleeved, or possibly even long sleeved. So he could be wearing a short sleeve with a long sleeve underneath, or it could just be long sleeve but with a different pattern up in this section. So you can see the sleeves would start from the elbow to the wrist. He's wearing a short beard here. He's got a angular bow. Look at the decoration of his crown. It's a feathered crown with, you know, the addition that Assyrian kings' crowns have up on top of the flat. This style of crown was later used by Assyrians during Sargon's reigns, especially on the winged bulls. But the winged bulls tend to have the additions of the horns on them. Notice that's a mythological figure. This is a king. This is a figure of an actual person. And again, this Babylonian king is not wearing a horned headdress either. My point was the double daggers being tucked into the broad belt. Notice the design of the hilts. So you got that flared end of the half round pommel, and then look at the guard. Very short. Babylonian swords have got a distinctive short neck, short guard. Okay, so here's another image. It's a bit hard, but hey, I'm trying my best. This is a drawing. This is a line drawing of a Assyrian relief. I think it's from Layard's drawings as well. So it's accurate, is my point. That's why I like using Layard's drawing, because they're accurate. Notice the pommel, then the flange, the ribbed. So the half circle would have been there, then the rib, and then you would have had the guard. So his hand is very far forward compared to where the rest of the handle is. He's wearing scale armor. He's got the wraparound shawl at the bottom, so he's probably wearing a tunic, wraparound shawl, scale armor on top. Here you can see the conical helmet with long beard, which would indicate to me that this guy's definitely an Assyrian. He's finishing him off, finishing the enemy off. That's a cavalry enemy cavalryman. Here's your shield bearer. I think he's got a spear. This guy's got a spear. Yeah, see? So he's protecting him with a spear, while this one is finishing him off. Notice pairs. They always work in pairs. Look at the way he's holding that. That's definitely a club lock. Very far forward. He's grabbing his hair to expose his neck so he can finish him off. Here again, I think this is from the palace of Ninware. Yeah, Kuyunjik. Ninware. Shawl, upper half I think is naked. That lion demon. Here again, let's have a look at the placement of the hand, even in a nice pick grip. So this is definitely a nice pick grip. You see the mushroom half pommel, and then the blade of the actual sword. Let's see if we can see the scabbard. No, here's a strap for the scabbard of this sword or dagger, and look how far forward his hand is. He's choking the guard. He's up on the guard. So yeah. Okay, so now we get into some of Sargon's reliefs, Sargon II, and here, which is later in time period than Ashurnasirpal's. Finally, we can actually see those lions' heads. Notice that's the opening of the mouth, that's the upper half of the head, so it's upside down. Now, this side is actually upside down. Ears, and that's the main. Here's your rib, your swell, your rib, and then you've got the little section where you could fit your pinky in if you wanted to, and the mushroom pommel too. Can't see much here, but we can definitely see the scabbard. The lions are still hugging each other during the time period of Sargon Traiana. Fat earrings, and that's his son Sennacherib, crown prince. Okay, these are Ashurbanipal's reliefs. Mace. Here we go. Club lock grip. And the sword strap. So remember, shoulder blades. This is shoulder blades. Naked from the upper half. This shoulder blades. That's his left arm. That's his right. Look at that grip. So there's the end of the guard. The blade starts. Notice how short that blade is. So it's almost like 50-50. 50% handle, 50% blade in a sheath or scabbard that is this long. So if you were to measure this and see how far that would go in, it'll probably only go into about there, which is very unusual. But this setup, broad belt, narrow belt on top with the scabbard sitting in between and the strap going over the right shoulder. So it sits onto the left side. So this is meant to indicate his left side. But look what's happening here. So imagine if you're in this position, okay, which is doable. If I was to take a photo of your back doing this is very achievable. Now look at the switch that happens in ancient Assyrian reliefs. Now you've got the right foot forward and the left foot back, which is if you ever try it, it's not natural. And they're doing it on purpose for some reason. And it's always the case, even here. So here, this one looks more natural, okay, because you can see this is possible. So that shoulder that's leading is with that foot that should be leading. This is how they should be drawn. But for some reason, at this stage, this is the awkwardness of the body. It's always twisted in this case. Even in Ashurnasirpal's reliefs, you see the body twisted in this awkward configuration. Now, here is Ashurbanipal's hunting reliefs. This is the actual hilt. So when I styled mine, I styled it off this. So you can see that's the guard section. That's the start of the scabbard. So from here on would be the blade. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 ribs. It's a very clean handle, 4 ribs, and then you got swell for the pommel end as well. So that's what the sword looks like when the king is not holding it. This is a chariot driver. Notice his square armor getting smaller and smaller during that period. Anyway, here are Ashurnasirpal's reliefs. I'll just give him a shout out. Osama S.M. Amin. He takes wonderful photos of ancient Assyrian reliefs and ancient Iraqi artifacts. So, yeah, if you can get a hold of his pictures, they're wonderful to look at. So, I'd like to thank him for his photography. Now, when we look at these, I think this is a genie figure, but here you can see the simple. This is the simple Assyrian dagger handle style. This is a double. You can see it's one sheath or one scabbard with two daggers in there. So, is there a split down the middle? I don't know. Like in the actual scabbard itself, so that you could separate these two, or is it just one opening where two daggers fit in there? Interesting. But you could see some of the designs on the handles, relatively, what's that, flower patterns. These are very simple Assyrian designs. Most of the archaeological evidence that's been left behind is hand shapes of this simplistic style with the scales on either end, and they're usually pinned in three positions: 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and